Almonte's Key Food, proudly serving communities throughout Brooklyn, Queens, and Long Island for over 30 years. When you shop Key Food, you'll always find fresh products, great weekly specials, and exceptional personalized service. Visit at any of their Key Food stores at 8235 153rd Avenue, Lindenwood, New York, 935 Rosedale Road, Valley Stream, New York, and 6620 Avenue U, Brooklyn, New York.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me. Taxi. Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Over the past day, solar activity has jumped to a high. In total, the sun fired 16 flares, 1 X-ray class, 6 M class, and 9 C class events. We don't know what that means, but the legendary Dr. Sky has agreed to join us. Our man in space, our man who looks at the sky and shares the information with us. Dr. Sky, please don't come on with that big voice and make me sound like I'm 8.
Good morning, Walter.
Yes,
good to be on your show. Thank you so much. And
thank you.
You're so right. The people in the New York Metro and the East Coast will be experiencing Phoenix-like weather where I live, and it's incredible. We're used to 110 degrees, but, well, this is what happens when we, unfortunately, have this time of year where the weather's a little bit off the charts, wouldn't you say?
What is going on with the sun, sir?
Let's talk a little bit about what these solar flares are. Every 11 years, many of the scientists say that the sun goes through this seething thing that's called solar activity, the solar cycle. Right now, we're in solar cycle 25, Walter. And right now, it's supposed to be waning. But unfortunately, for many out there, the sun is, as you mentioned before we were on the air, blaring out these gigantic flares. So let's describe what a flare is to people. In 1 second, the sun is putting out 10% in that flare event, 10% of the total sun's output in just 1 second. And how it happens, it's really interesting. It's a complicated process, but to be very short to the point, it's their snapping of magnetic fields on the sun. These sunspots, if you take a look at a website like spaceweather.com, you'll get to see this big orange ball, this image of the sun, these 2 gigantic sunspots. What are they? They're cooler regions in the sun that are intensely magnetic. So when they snap, Walter, they send out these different levels of flares. You mentioned the C class, M class, and of course the most powerful of the X. So right now, 3 major sunspot groups, Walter, are kind of in unison. It's like almost like they're reaching out to each other. And the residual for us here on this planet is, over the next few days, not to sound alarmist, we could be seeing more sightings of the northern lights. That's a pretty thing. But more of these proton storms called coronal mass ejections hit the Earth. And that could be damaging to satellites, as we all know. Obviously, skin. We don't want to be out in the ultraviolet of the sun. And even more prolific is so many of the things that happen here, like we talked about with space and satellites. That could be a big problem if these flares continue.
How big a problem?
Well, it's measured on something back in 1859. Long before we went to a digital world, the analog world was the telegraph. And in September of 1859, as the story goes, we had one of the most massive solar flares ever. Richard Carrington, an astronomer, observed this with his eye with the protection of the telescope filter. That happened in 1859, and what it did, Walter, is interesting. Telegraph lines across the nation and the world actually caught fire from these proton storms. So they can be dangerous, and that's before we even talked about internet, Starlink, satellites, and all the technology that we're so dependent on, right from our phone to everything we use to control our lives electronically.
Steve Cates is Dr. Sky, and he is an expert on astronomy, space, aviation, weather, and unlike many people who study and know about his expertise, what he presents is common sense. He's a common sense scientist, astronomer. And he's on the Red Apple audio networks every weekend, and he does a great show. It's a fantastic weekend show. No, really. Now, Dr. Sky, what is the likelihood that it's not going to set any of our power lines on fire? What is some of the physical damage it could do that we are likely to see?
Well, let's go back to the power grid. And that's a whole nother subject for another time. Many people talk about the infrastructure in the U.S. We're talking about America first. That the problematic thing is, if we have transformers that fail, we notice that what happened in 1989, an incredible massive solar flare hit the grid up in Canada. And for those of our listeners in Canada, they may have well experienced this and know the hardship of that. The event from the sun, one of those solar flares, they send out these protons, high-energy particles. And what happened, Walter, because the geology of that part of the country, it does reflect, I should say, it's harder rock up in that area. So when those protons hit, they come back and bounce off, and what do? They shut down the power grid for maybe more than 15 million people. And not to sound alarmist, I mean, these solar flares, they've happened, they continue to happen, and the process that this happens by, people should understand this. Every second, imagine, Walter, if I got the phone bill, or the energy bill. Every second, the sun is transforming 600 million tons of hydrogen through this whole fusion process. Remember, it's fusion to 596 million tons of helium. And the residual is nothing's free in space. You get 4 million tons of energy in radiant energy. So as the sun continues to pump out this incredible energy, imagine getting a utility bill every second for that. And it's been going on for 4 billion years. All I can tell people out there is not to be alarmist, but these CMEs that are headed toward us, you could have a mild to maybe a little more severe geomagnetic storm. But then again, some of them do fade out. The worst ones are the ones that have these CMEs that combine together. They call them cannibal CMEs. So the sun fires one off like it just did. And if that one catches up to the next one, what do? They sometimes expand. But it's fascinating to study the sun because it's so amazing. So if the sun went out right now, Walter, in the daylight, it's 8.5 minutes. That's how long it takes light to get from the sun. So in other words, if we saw the sun go out, sad to say, it would have happened 8.5 minutes ago, as of course, the speed of light, which is the whole thing. We're talking about light and energy, snapping magnetic fields. And we've had bigger events going back into history, like in 774 AD. Allegedly, there was a massive event. A Japanese scientist, Miyake, identified that we had even 100-time more powerful solar flare event like that of the Carrington event, and that would be just devastating to the Earth. But we want to talk positivity, so it's like we're getting an early fireworks show for our 250th, courtesy of the sun, so we always keep our eyes to the skies.
If you have a question for Dr. Sky about the solar flares, the damage they could do to you, and your ability to heat, light, air condition your home, call 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. We are live. I just got an email right now from one of our contributors who lives in Canada, and usually he comes on at 3 a.m., dependably, Dave Scott. He comes on, and he just sent me an email saying, I can't come on tonight. The power to all of my part of Canada has been knocked out.
Wow.
With no timeline as to when it could possibly be on. It included not only the power where I am, but all the cell phone towers are knocked out.
That's incredible, Walter. Wow.
And there it is. Just now. This just happened.
Amazing.
I
hope everybody's okay.
Right. I suspect. But he this is what he says. He says, in my community, a power outage has knocked out all cell phone towers. There's no timeline to get it up and running. And I do have internet, but I have no cell phone signal. He's not going to be on tonight.
Sure.
All right, you can talk to Dr. Sky at 800-848-9222. The Other Side of Midnight is on great radio stations like WGN in Chicago. Now, question, if you're in the space station and there are these type of solar flares, this type of sun activity, are you at great danger?
You could be, Walter. And that's the biggest problem we have venturing out to Mars. And I'm sure the team at SpaceX and others are going to be working on that, Jeff Bezos with Blue Origin. Remember, there's a Chinese space station called Tiangong that's up there. But yes, that could be an effect on them. There is radiation shielding. I'm not privy to exactly how much in the rads or whatever the Rankins that they measure it in. But that could be a serious problem. And I'm not a medical doctor, but I talk about this because in space, you're obviously, you're not protected by anything. And if you're out there doing a spacewalk, God help you, that could be very, very dangerous. Because remember, these are protons, high-charged particles from the sun. And these stars, by the way, eventually the sun will run for 4.5 billion more years. That's not my guarantee. That's what the space and astrophysicists tell us. But if you look at the death of a star, what will happen later in time, we won't be here, of course, is that the sun will consume all of its hydrogen. It'll start trying to fuse, helium, and then it'll start expanding like many of us do around our waistline, not to be funny. But the truth of the matter is the sun will start to look at heavier metals into it and expands. And then the fast short circuit on this would be that the sun theoretically would collapse into a supernova. And then once again, a regeneration of material in space so that another star would form. But that's a long time, and that's a whole thing about stellar evolution.
Dr. Sky, how long should we expect this extraordinary and unusual sun activity?
Good question, Walter. It could go on for another couple of weeks, but the sun does what it wants to do, obviously. There's no way for us to put a stranglehold on it. So the solar cycle is supposed to, because every 11.5 years it waxes and wanes. So we're looking now at a downward cycle of solar cycle 25, and they measure these solar cycles. We've had many more intense, solar flare activities over the course of years, other than the Carrington event. So the short answer would be, we really don't know. I mean, even the greatest of heliophysicists and scientists would say it's all probability, the roll of the dice. But Einstein said it better, and I think his quote was, God does not play dice with the universe. But in this particular case, nobody really knows.
Dr. Sky, 800-848-9222. You and I are talking about the extraordinary solar flare activity that has taken place on the sun in the past week. It has knocked out communications to much of the Pacific. It may have knocked out power to much of Canada just now. And Tim, welcome to the other side of midnight with Dr. Sky at 800-848-9222. Hello, Tim.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good morning. Good to see you. Thank you.
Good morning. Good evening here. I'm in Arizona. I just want to take off on that positivity. I know all the negative stuff that can happen, but could you tell everybody, and especially me, I'm very interested in what we would see with the Northern Lights. Would there be a bigger display tonight, and where would it be?
Good question, Tim. What would happen is that if this thing really flares up, you would see maybe over the next few days. It takes these CMEs maybe 2 to 3 days to actually hit the Earth. They travel at about 1 million miles an hour, and since we're about a little over 93 million miles away, many places that have super dark skies, you would get to see this much, much better. Regular listeners in Canada and people, of course, up in Alaska, they see this, and they don't even bat an eyelash because, well, it is beautiful. But, Tim, the simple answer would be the darker the skies, it's all dependent on what they call a geomagnetic storm. And with these, the geomagnetic storm analysis right now says it should be a G2. A higher level, of course, is a G3 and a G4. We had a G4 back in October, about a year or so ago, and it's amazing. Friends of mine all across the country were emailing and texting saying they're seeing these, even, Walter, down in areas like New York City, even down into southern parts of Florida, we're actually getting to see this. So you don't really know. It's one of the things I recommend people check out is spaceweather.com, a great website that actually does almost an instantaneous live analysis of when and where to see these.
Yes, you and I are having the privilege, thanks for the call, Tim. You and I are having the privilege of talking to Dr. Sky, Steve Cates. He's on every Saturday, every Sunday from midnight to 2. And not only is his voice much better than mine and intimidating, but he in the photos in these prestigious ads, he's also ridiculously good looking. It's just very unfair. He's a doctor and he's good looking and he's a big voice. And there's Victor. Welcome to the other side of midnight, Victor, with Dr. Sky, 800-848-9222.
Yeah, I have a question for Dr. Sky. It relates to your story, Walter, about a long time ago that these buildings had metal rods on them, and they collected power from the ether, and then that was banned, or that was put out of practice by the oil companies because they wanted to meter electricity. Can you explain that to Dr. Sky and then get him to explain to us how that worked?
Well, first you have to stay focused on the fact that these are radio facts. Next,
Radio fax?
Yes, radio fax.
Yes.
From about 1750 to 1850, most of the homes and most of the factories and churches that were built in North America had a foot and a half high antenna that were made out of copper and brass about every 6 feet on their roofs. And you and I were told those were lightning rods. Those were not lightning rods. Those were devices that captured ether, energy from the universe, energy from the sky, took it down into the homes, heated boilers, warmed the homes, lit things, and it was free. Now, since 1850, they're not building those with those, quote, lightning rods, yet there's still lightning. But nothing is being built with lightning rods. They were for a very different purpose, yes.
Very
That's
interesting.
Right. That's right, Victor.
Victor, you bring up something very, very interesting. Nikola Tesla, if you look at the history of what he did, he was also trying to do this. He was actually one of the original inventors, I should say, of wireless communication. But he believed strongly the same thing Walter's talking about. That energy from the cosmos, when the universe was created, let's go back in time, 13.7 billion years ago, when the universe expanded. I prefer the expansion instead of an explosion. That material that's sent out into the universe, it's called a cosmic microwave background radiation. Sounds really complicated. But the reason I'm mentioning that is, Walter's correct in this, that there is this energy that comes out from the universe. But how do we tap it, and how do we really maintain it, and how do we quantify it? And that's something that Nikola Tesla was working on. And also, again, not to be repetitive, the transmission, wireless transmission, way ahead of its time by radio frequency and also light. So that genius, of course, did so much and was a lot undercredited, wouldn't you say, Walter, for all the things he tried to do?
He was undercredited and died penniless for two reasons. One is he was no businessman, but secondly, he believed that all of this energy that existed was free to us and therefore should be free. He didn't want any money for most of his inventions. He didn't want any money for his wireless energy inventions. He only wanted money for, like, his motors, the AC motors. And what did he do with his AC motor? He sold it to Westinghouse for
$800.
It was like $800 he sold it to them. Hey, Victor, thanks very much for the call.
Thank you, Victor. Very interesting.
800-848-9222. Melvin, welcome to the other side of midnight. Hi.
Hello, Walter?
Yes, sir.
Hi, Melvin.
When these transformers that are at the power plant, and you have them in neighborhoods, they're huge transformers for different areas. When they get melted down from the solar flare, you can't go to Walmart or Home Depot and go buy a new transformer.
You're
They're
right.
custom built in China, and it can take 6 months to get them replaced.
You know, Melvin, you took the words right out of my mouth. The problematic thing, if we go into a deep discussion of the problem with the energy grid here in the United States, you're right. Some of these megawatt generators and power transformers, you're right. So if they get blown out, not just from terrorism.
I also want to tell you
you're right.
that I am addicted to spaceweather.com.
Yes, sir. It's a great site. I know the
That's the
gentleman.
first thing I check when I get up.
I love it. That's a great thing.
I
know
it.
Dr. Tony Phillips is the guy who does it. He's an interesting guy. He spends a lot of time giving that out. And you're right. It's one of the great resources.
I know more now about science and physics than when I went to school.
I believe it. I believe it, Melvin, and I believe you're going to go into space very soon. Thank you very much for the call. 800-848-9222. There's Sarah. Sarah from Brooklyn, congratulations for getting through to Dr. Sky.
Good morning.
I feel lucky, too, and thanks to your bosses for setting up the station and their news
Stop.
that they have.
Stop. Sarah, stop. Let's put a name to it.
Yes.
It's John Katzimatidis and Margot
Right,
Katzimatidis
Margot.
Absolutely.
and Chad Lopez, who have brought us all together to this spectacular media table. Now it's your turn, Sarah.
Years ago, and should have known better then, I wanted to watch a solar eclipse. I got the shoebox. I punched a hole in it. My husband gave me a piece of black, from a roll of black and white film to put in front of my eye. but it was a curiosity, so I dropped everything for one quick second just to look. And when I later saw my eye doctor, he says he saw a funny spot in my left eye that he never saw before. Could that have been a result because I took for a split second without?
Well, Sarah, let me say this. I'm sorry you had that experience, but you wanted to be, powerful and wanted to see the eclipse. Here's the problem with that. You're absolutely right. We don't recommend anyone using, since nobody really develops film anymore, do not use that. I mean, in those days, people thought it was safe. And not to, alarm you or anybody out there. Just go out with the regular solar safe approved ISO glasses. They cost.
Oh, I didn't know they had that.
They didn't. What year? May I ask you? What year was that you're talking about? Because they probably
we're talking like 70-something years ago.
I understand, ma'am. They didn't have that.
In my 20s,
Most people did exactly what you did, but I pray that your eyesight is.
Well, I always love science. I need bifocals for a long time. I had the implants for distance, and now the trouble is with age, I have trouble keeping my eyes wide open.
Sarah, you're not old enough to have this conversation. Go get the bifocals. Call us back when you have them. Thank you for the call.
I'm wearing them. I'm wearing them.
Well, Sarah, if I may just jump in real quick.
Thank you
Walter,
so much.
There'll be 2 major eclipses of the sun. One's August 12th in Spain. And then the big one, Walter, for everybody who's interested, I'm not part of any tour group or a travel agent.
You should.
Is August 2, 2027 in Luxor, Egypt. You'll get to see, well, obviously the weather will be good, an eclipse of over 6 minutes and 30 seconds, which is almost an all-time record for a total solar eclipse. So you've been warned and you've been told.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for the call. 800-848-9222. You and I are talking to Dr. Sky, Steve Cates. He's on the Red Apple Audio Networks every Saturday and Sunday from midnight to 2 a.m. My hunch is at some point this weekend he will talk about the amazing, huge solar flares that have taken place this week.
Correct.
Interfering with power. Half of Canada lost their power. We're not going to have Dave Scott on tonight at 3. He can't go on the air. Half of Canada has lost their power, and through much of the Pacific earlier this week it interfered with broadcast transmission. Jim in upstate New York, welcome to the other side of midnight with Dr. Sky.
Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Walter. Good morning, Dr. Sky.
How you doing?
What's good? I'm not a green person, but I have 2 friends with solar on their homes, and it really is important, especially things like this with the grid going down and the grid being old. And one friend leases his solar panels for like $164 a month. The other's putting it on. It's very expensive to pay for it and put it on. But the one friend's had the solar for years, and it's very reliable. I mean, if it snows, you got to clean the solar panels off. You still got to have backup. But solar is really important,
It is.
Especially people don't realize that it's a green energy. A lot of solar panels are built in China, too.
Jim, how does this affect you?
How does it affect me? My electric bill's gone from, a couple of hundred to 400, 450. So electric bills used to be an afterthought. Now it's getting to be like almost a car payment, And I know people that are higher than that.
Oh,
but again, just the reliability of being self-sufficient.
Right. Jim, it's criminal. It is criminal that every year throughout the country, power companies go to the State Energy Commission to get a permission to adjust their rates up, and they're never turned down. They're never told you're not getting more. They always get what they want, and the power grid deteriorates every year. You and I waste money on more eco-friendly equipment that's supposed to use less electricity, and therefore our bills should go down, and they never do, Jim. Thank you very much for the call with Dr. Sky. Tom, you're at 800-848-9222 with Walter Sterling and Dr. Sky.
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning. My question is, the electrical part of the infrastructure is based on 1970s technology, and we always have blackouts and brownouts. And I know for 100% fact that it could have been replaced a long time ago, but I'm wondering what the agenda is to not replace it and just leave it deteriorating and keep blacking out and not replacing it. And,
well, Tom,
and,
you bring up something very interesting.
We have a problem. We have a blackout. Oh, these poor people, they're without lights. And now, okay.
Well, Tom, it's more, in my opinion, it's more like a political issue. Maybe Walter would agree, I'm not. But here it is. A lot of people are moving forward with nuclear power. And when you say that, right, Walter, some people go crazy. The hairs on the end, of their back of their neck stand up. And then the other possibility, and this is something that's not really perfected yet, it's down, who knows, I'm guessing, and I don't like to guess, maybe 20, 30 years, fusion power, where we could actually have more dependence. Because if we go on to the dark side, where terrorists, I know this happened years ago in a small community near I think it was south of Santa Cruz or somewhere there in California, San Jose. Apparently, somebody went in there and shot up one of the power transformers with an AK-47, and this was identified by law enforcement and the government. It shut down a very large area, just like Tom's talking about the problematic thing of one small area can affect a gigantic area. And just like you were saying, Walter, you're getting an email from someone in Canada describing something happening right now on your show.
It's criminal. Thanks for the call, Tom. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a privilege. We've had Steve Cates, Dr. Sky, every Saturday and Sunday, midnight to 2 a.m. live, to talk about science, astronomy, metaphysics, things that he is truly an expert on. And just a joy to have you on the Red Apple Audio Networks. Dr. Sky, thank you very much for being on the show tonight.
My pleasure, Walter. Thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
The playoffs are here, and you can predict the action all the way to the finals with FanDuel Predicts. Predict the spread, the total points, and even the game-winning moments that make the playoffs. Sign up and get a $25 bonus with FanDuel Predicts.
Offered by FanDuel Prediction Markets, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant. 18-plus bonus is non-withdrawable and expires 7 days after receipt. Trading derivatives involves significant risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Manage your activity with their consumer protection tools. Restrictions apply. See terms at FanDuel.com/predicts/bonus-offer-terms.